Now I'm shamelessly addicted to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I call it the productivity drainer. Oh, I'll just have a few games and then 10 hours later it's 4 AM and I'm still playing. But that in itself shows just how much fun this game can be and the replayability factor that it has. In this video we're going to be examining why that is and also going over the road ahead for the game, what the developers have said and planned for the game in the foreseeable future. And before you ask, yes, the devs have apparently said it's coming to console as well as PC. So why then? Why is the question? Why is it so good? Well, first off, it's got a simple premise. I just love the idea of battle royale games for a start, and when H1Z1BR first came out, I played that a lot, but nothing compares to how much I'm playing Battlegrounds at the moment. The gunplay is a huge plus for me. Each gun has a specific role, benefits and negatives. The M16, for example, is a very easy gun to find and very powerful at range, whereas the AK, for instance, is super damaging up close, and shotguns can be lethal if you use them to push up on an enemy and clear a building. And then of course the sniper rifles that you can obtain from crates and the benefits of different scope combinations as well. Red dot sights or hollows are fantastic up close, but when the zone moves out of a city, the 4x ACOG is so powerful for taking out enemies at range. And then if you've got an 8x sniper scope, well, you're living the dream. And don't get me started on silencers, they are incredibly powerful, as well as all of the angled grip compensators and flash hiders in the game. My point is that there are so many ways to kit up and play the game. You will always gravitate towards certain weapons that are your favourites, but there are some that you might use in certain situations. Perhaps one game you might find a 4x ACOG sight and have to play differently. All in all, the game is pretty simple with a lot of choice, and it often gives you a different experience every single time. Combine that with all the heart-pumping moments that happen, those intense firefights, and you really want to win. Say the zone is moving fast and you've got multiple enemies, or you're pinned down and stuck in a 1v1. Not many games for me actually match that excitement anymore. What's even more impressive though is that it's only just hit early access, but even then there's still a long road ahead. Sure, it's fun right now and the core gameplay is very good, it's a good start, but it still needs a lot of improvements and updates, but thankfully the developers are more than happy to share exactly what they want to achieve and the timeline for it. If they stick to their plans, I have to say so far they seem to be doing that, then this game will be genuinely brilliant when it comes to full release. The first thing, and probably the one that most people will notice, will be performance improvements, and over the next few months that's going to be a huge priority for the dev team. I get pretty good FPS in the game. I'd say I average around 100 in most areas, but like everyone else, when I look into a city or I'm close by to a big town, then the FPS can get pretty nasty, and that's the one main thing that they want to address here. They want to reduce the overload on the CPU and ensure that the GPU performance is at max capacity, so that when you're around a city you get the performance that you expect and good FPS for those intense gunfights. The secondary part of this optimization is the art assets, readjusting certain areas and terrain to ensure it's as efficient as possible. And the devs also want these built up areas to look a lot simpler at distance, which will also help performance. Now that isn't a small task, but reworking certain buildings and terrain areas to make them less demanding will also help improve performance overall, and they're aiming for it to be achieved by the middle of next month, so not long to wait. There was also a Battlegrounds dev stream with Marek and Pavel in which a ton of info was released regarding future content and updates, a lot of which got me really excited. Let's start with mod support, because honestly this is what could propel the game and give it so much potential moving forward. They want the game to have mod support about 6 months down the line, and also with it being on Unreal Engine it's a relatively simple process, just like other games such as Squad or Ark. PlayerUnknown, who is the lead developer on the game, of course started as a modder himself, so this is something quite close to his heart I think. But rest assured, mods will run on separate servers and they won't be looking at making it available until after they're satisfied with where the game optimization's at. And talking of waiting until the game is right, when the game is finalised on PC, as I said at the start, it will be coming out on console, and if that was to happen I could see this being a massive hit on console. The amount of comments I've seen on my Battlegrounds videos from console players saying, why isn't this on Xbox or PS4, or tweets I've been getting, just loads. Yes, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be coming for you console players as well. Now right now your in-game ranking is based on an ELO system. You start with around 1200 points and then kills are worth 20% and win points are worth 100%. kills are based on obviously who you killed and their rank, and of course who you died to. Eventually there'll be a proper matchmaking system whereby essentially you're going to get ranked with players who are roughly at your rank or close to it at the very least. As well as that though, there are plans for an unranked system so you can jump on and practice to your heart's content, and even a 5v5 ranked competitive game mode. Now that sounds pretty interesting to me, and I'm not sure exactly how that would work, perhaps a much smaller version of the map, but I'm sure that we'll see down the line. Interestingly, it seems that the devs want to have an esports scene for this game, but they want it to grow itself and don't want to shoehorn something in. And whilst that isn't easy, H1Z1 has done reasonably well with its invitational events, so there is a precedent set therefore of a similar game working in an esports capacity. There's plans for a full replay system in the game too, so you could go back and watch how an entire match played out, which honestly sounds very optimistic but also fantastic. If you could go back into a game and watch the entire round, see the mistakes you made, see where someone was hiding, how they snuck up on you, how other people play the game, that would be incredible. And I hope this does make its way into the game, but as you can imagine, this has no ETA just yet, and it's something that they want to add down the line. You can also expect a hardcore first person mode to be introduced with a slightly reduced UI and no crosshairs, and honestly I think I could see myself playing that a lot. I really want a first person only mode in this game because I think it could be fantastic, offer a different experience, and just be even more tense than the game already is. You've really got to think about your situational awareness in first person only. Having said that, it would be nice to have some FOV tweaks because the current FOV in first person is pretty bad, and I'm not sure how much I could handle that for an entire game, but the devs have said that yes, they are adding a field of view slider. And something else which massively needs adding to the game, as well as an FOV slider, is a vaulting mechanic, and I like the developers' honesty here, as they've said that it's probably around 2 months out, as they want it to be a full jump, climb and vault mechanic, much like the system in Battlefield 1. It certainly needs some tweaks to the jumping, which will come when the full system is in place. What about the attachments to the guns in the game? Well, right now the compensator reduces vertical recoil of a gun, the flash hider changes the muzzle light and particle effect, and the suppressor of course reduces sound but also makes a small change in random spread. The vertical foregrip reduces horizontal recoil by a large amount, and the angled foregrip reduces both horizontal and vertical by a smaller amount. Speaking of weapons, they also plan to improve the UMP because they believe it's too weak, and to be fair, they're probably right against armoured opponents. I'm pretty sure that most people would rather have a rifle, so the UMP is kind of insignificant right now. Other than that, expect new maps. One is already being worked on. Excellent. And new vehicles, a motorbike and also a dual carriage motorbike are in the works, as well as improvements to current vehicle physics. Also, the plan is to have more destruction in the game, much like they currently have on the doors, but it needs to wait until the optimization is in a better place because of course the destruction kind of messes with that. And lastly for today's video, a quick fire of other planned features that I thought you guys might be interested in. Rangefinders and binoculars are planned. You'll be able to use medkits and stims eventually while in a car. FOV slider, which I've mentioned, will also have an introduction, but don't expect a rejoin mechanic in the game if you lag out or crash, because they think that at the moment it's just not possible. The bleeding meter is meant to stop when you start to revive someone, but it's currently bugged out and that will be fixed. Map markers that you can currently put down are only visible to yourself, but eventually they will be visible by your partner, and if you're playing squads, of course your entire squad. Streamer specific features will also be making their way into the game, but no word just yet on what they will be, and also expect that player stats will be wiped when the final release of the game happens. At the moment it's selling like crazy on Steam, but remember it's still in early access. Overall, there are a ton of incredibly good changes in here, and I have to admit some optimistic ones, and while there have been many examples of early access games maybe staying in early access for far too long and not living up to their hype or sticking to what they say, we can only go on what we've seen so far, and in my opinion so far the updates for Battlegrounds have been very good, and the communication from the developer team with what's been worked on has also been really impressive. I've got very high hopes for this game, and I think a lot of other people do, considering how popular it currently is on Steam and Twitch. If the dev team achieve what they've set out to and keep all of their promises, then Battlegrounds will be one of the most popular games around.